Now let's move to the baking module. And let's bake 200 frames. And this is going to bake the rigid body simulation to cache. Perfect. Let's turn off the pretty shading. And let's show the overlays. And let's save the file. Let's say bake. So now, as we move through the timeline, we can see the location of the chunks. Perfect. Now, although it is not required, I usually bake the simulation to keyframes, as it helps when we are working with large number of chunks, like thousands of chunks, as it saves on RAM and the computation time. Just ensure before baking to keyframes, we save the file. Because when we bake to keyframes, we lose all the options of the rigid bodies. And so if we have a backup file, we can always get back to that file and make any changes to the rigid body simulation if we want to. So the way I bake to keyframes is by selection, and then I'll ensure I select all the chunks by pressing A, and then remove any activators or other objects from the selection. And then I'm going to bake to keyframes. And here there's a warning, you will lose the options of your rigid bodies. Do you wish to continue? Yes, because I already have a saved file. There we go. And let's deselect the rigid body world under scene properties. And there you go, it's been baked to keyframes. Now let's take a look at the particles. Now let's save as keyframes. Perfect. Now we can also create debris, dust, and smoke particles, which is under particles module. Now let's start with the outer walls. And here we have debris, dust, and smoke. And under debris, we have options broken and motion. So what broken means is as the distance between the chunks is greater than a particular value, then debris is generated. And this is the threshold which determines that. And I'd like to keep it fairly low. And the motion setting indicates that the chunk has to generate debris once the chunk is in motion. And the minimum velocity for that is 0.4 meters per second, as mentioned here. And we can increase or decrease based on our scene. And the particle system limit, by default, it is 1. We can change it 2 or 3 if we like. And here, I always select force update broken motion and create debris. And there we go. The chunks changed in color, and that indicates that debris is created from these chunks. Perfect. And that's on the outer wall. And here we have different options from the particle settings in Blender, which is the size of the particles and the random size, the count, lifetime, and under physics, we have the velocity and rotations, and we can change the object velocity and rotations. And randomize. And here we can change the time step if we want to increase or decrease the speed of the particle simulation. And if we make any changes, we got to click on update to update those changes. And here we have an option for custom debris, where right now the debris that we have is the debris basics, which the RBDLab automatically generates. But let us say we are working with something like glass or something which is very specific, then we want such particles to indicate the material and the nature of the chunk as well. So what we can do is let's go to RBDLab and let's go to outer wall high, and let's select a couple of chunks. So these are some of the chunks that I selected right here. And we would like these chunks to be part of our custom debris. So once these are selected, we will go to create custom debris and then we'll give it a name. Let us say wall. Perfect. And let's ensure we toggle the visibility. And then under collection, we'll select the wall custom debris that we just created. Now the debris that'll fall to the ground will be in the shape of the chunks that we selected and the material. So that's the advantage of custom debris. And field weights, we have different field weights that we can work with. Perfect. So let's take a look at the dust. And here too, I would like to reduce the distance threshold and then create dust. And here I would like the count to be fairly high. And under physics, I would like the object velocity to be a little bit lower for the dust. And time step, we can reduce this to 0.03. And field weights, we can reduce the gravity. All right, let's take a look. There we go. So that's the debris and the dust from the outer wall. And then let's also create smoke particles, as we're going to be generating smoke a little later. And then create smoke. All right. And the blue particles that are generated here, those are the smoke particles. All right, let's toggle the visibility. And let's do the same thing on the floor's target collection as well. And let's hide the wall so we can actually see the floor. And there we go. That's the debris from the floor. Let's create dust. And let's increase the number of dust particles. There we go. Looks good. Let's generate smoke particles as well for the floors. And there we go. The blue particles are the smoke. Perfect. And let's generate the particles for the columns as well. And let's hide the floors so we can only see columns. There we go. Let's create dust. And we can also create a custom debris collection for each of these target collections as well. And for dust, let's increase the particle count. Perfect. And let's go to the smoke tab and create smoke particles as well. And the blue particles here are the smoke particles that will generate smoke. Now we have all the particles generated. Let's save the file. On the outer wall, I forgot to click on update for the custom debris. So it reverted back to the debris basics. So let's click on wall custom debris, and then we need to click on update. So this updates the debris to the wall custom debris. And let's toggle the visibility. Cool. In the next part, let's take a look at the collision module and the smoke module.